Hey there. Welcome to The Awakened Heart, a podcast for neurodivergent and trauma experienced women. I'm Moran, licensed professional counselor, yoga instructor, life coach, and ultimately your fellow neurodivergent, trauma experienced woman. And today we are going somewhere ancient, somewhere that is 4,000 years old and somehow still describes exactly what we are living right now when we think about the rebirth arc, when we think about finding ourselves, when we think about burning it all down and starting afresh, starting anew with clearer eyes, with more wisdom. And who I'm talking about is Inanna, the oldest named goddess in recorded human history. She is the queen of heaven and earth and the woman who chose to descend into the underworld, losing everything she was and return more whole than she had ever been. Before I get into the story of her, I want to say something directly to you, to the woman who is in the middle of your descent right now. If you are in the dark, if you are in the middle of losing something, a relationship, an identity, a version of yourself you thought you needed, if you are in the phase of healing where nothing feels certain and everything feels stripped and you don't know who you are on the other side of this episode is for you. This is not for the women who already have come through, not for the women who haven't started yet. It's for the ones who are in it right now, in the descent. In the descent of our season 2 healing from sexual trauma, right? Like this all-encompassing healing after sexual trauma. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of descending, letting go of a lot of layers. I have been in my descent many times. I know what it feels like to be in the dark and not know if the darkness ends. I know what it feels like to lose things, relationships, stability, versions of myself I thought were very needed and required of me. And I lost all that in order to become something truer to my authentic self. My kids kept me moving. My rage kept me moving. My absolute refusal to repeat the patterns of the women who came before me kept and still keep me moving. The dream of a life I didn't have to recover from, a life where every day was meaningful, not just the weekends, that dream kept me coming back when I wanted to quit. And I did want to quit. I fumbled. I tried things that didn't work. I took breaks. Shit, I even stopped. But I started again because the dream kept coming back. That's to the descent. And Inanna knew it too. So let's get into Inanna's story. Not the patriarchal version, not the version that was rewritten over centuries to make her smaller, the original version. If you Google Inanna's original text and read that text, it's very interesting. It's very telling of the story compared to a current regular version of the story. There's a little bit of subtlety, but I'm going with the non-patriarchal version in honor of burning the motherfucking patriarchy down. Okay. So Inanna was the queen of heaven and earth. She ruled love and desire and war and justice and political power. She was not soft. She was not gentle. She was fierce and complex and fully herself. And one day in the reading, it says she set her ear to the great below. And that phrase, set her ear, means she heard something. She attended to something calling from the depths. Something in her knew she was not yet complete. She already ruled heaven. She already had extraordinary power, but there was a realm she had never entered, and wholeness required knowing it all. So she chose to go. This is the first and foremost important thing about Inanna's descent. She chose it. She was not forced. She was not punished into it. She didn't do it because she was bad. She made a sovereign decision to go into the darkness because some part of her knew she had to. But before she left, she did something very wise. She told her most trusted servant, Ninshubar, exactly where she was going. And she gave Ninshubar instructions. If I do not return in 3 days, go to the gods and ask for help. Get me out. So she prepared her support system before she descended. She arranged her rescue before she needed it. Then she went. At the gates of the underworld, there were 7 entrances, and each gate, the gatekeeper stopped her and demanded something be removed from her. Her crown was her wisdom. Her earrings were for her all hearing. Her necklace was for her voice. Her breastplate, her ring, her measuring rod, her royal robe. Like all these things were taken off of her. Everything that marked her as a queen, everything she used to move through the world, it was everything that constituted her identity. And each time she was presented with having to remove these things, she would just simply ask, "What is this?" And each time the answer was the same. "Quiet, Inanna. The ways of the underworld are perfect. They may not be questioned. So just have faith. You're going where you're going." She arrived in the underworld naked, stripped of everything. Eshkaggal, her dark sister, the queen of the great below, looked at her and killed her on sight, hung her body on a hook. Therefore, Inanna was dead for 3 days. And then Ninshubar did what Inanna had asked her. She got help. She went to several people in the writing in the scripture. She went to several people and they denied help. They denied help. And then finally, Ninshubar was able to get help in the help of 2 small beings who were sent into the underworld. And when they got there, they found Inanna's sister, queen of the underworld, in agony, crying out in pain and labor with something heavy and dark because she had killed Inanna. And they did something remarkable. They didn't fight her. They simply witnessed her. They echoed her cries back to her. They sat with her in her pain. And you know what happened? The queen of the underworld, Ereshkigal, transformed by being witnessed. She offered the 2 beings anything they wanted, and in turn they asked for Inanna, and Inanna was revived. She rose, she was changed, she was more whole than she had ever been, containing now both heaven and the underworld, both light and dark, both the queen she was and the woman who had died and returned. But the law of the underworld is absolute. No one leaves without a replacement. So Inanna ascended and found her husband, Dumuzi, sitting on her throne, celebrating her absence, unchanged. He had not mourned her. He had not done the work for himself in the growth that he needed while she was in the underworld. He just stayed the same. And she looked at him with clearer eyes. She had come from the underworld and back, revived, seeing it all, knowing it all, feeling it all. Eyes that had seen the underworld, and she could see that he could not receive the woman who had returned. So she named him as her replacement, not from spite, but from clarity. The transformed Inanna could now see exactly what and who could not meet her in her wholeness. That is the descent. That is the return. That is Inanna. So how about let's switch from this mythological story and see how it comes into our actual lives. Because the descent is not a metaphor. It is a real process that happens in real healing, and it has specific, recognizable characteristics. So first up, the descent is choosing to look at what you've been avoiding. Inanna set her ear to the great below. She heard something calling. She attended to it. Your descent begins the moment you stop running from the thing you've been running from. The trauma you haven't addressed, the patterns you keep repeating, the relationships you know that aren't right, the versions of yourself you've outgrown but haven't let go of. The descent in this moment you turn toward. So the descent is the moment you turn toward it instead of away from it. The moment you hold space for it, the moment you see it, the moment you let it breathe, the moment you give it a name. The descent requires losing your identity. At every gate, something was taken from Inanna, her crown, her protection, her voice, her fucking status, everything. In your descent, things will be taken too. The mask you've been wearing, the relationships that depend on you staying small, the coping strategies that got you through but are no longer serving you now. And it may also take the identity you built to survive. This feels like loss because it is loss. It's real loss. The stripping is real. But you cannot arrive at your wholeness while carrying everything that you used to survive. You have to pass through the gates without all the baggage and identity accoutrements. The descent includes a death. Inanna hung on a hook for 3 days, dead, between who she was and who she would become. This is a phase. This phase is real. It is the numb season, the identity vacuum, the period where you don't recognize yourself and the life you used to have no longer fits, and the life you're moving toward hasn't yet arrived. You are between, and beginning and being between feels like dying because something is dying. The old version of you, the one that needed the mask, the one that people pleased and fawned and made herself small. She has to die so the real you can live. The descent requires witnessing. Ershkigal was transformed not by being defeated, but by being witnessed. The queen of the underworld was witnessed and transformed. Someone sat with her in her agony and simply reflected it back. You need witnessing too, not fixing, not rushing, no one telling you it'll be okay or that it could be worse. You need to be seen in the dark, in the hard, in the full weight of what you're carrying. That is what therapy is. That is what genuine community is. That is what this podcast tries to be. And the return changes everything. Inanna did not return to the life she had before. She returned with new eyes, seeing clearly what could receive her and what could not. When you come through your descent, you will see differently too. You will know things you cannot unknow. And some of what you left behind will not be able to receive the person who came back. That is not tragedy. That is transformation. So how? Practical tools, right? How to embody Inanna during your descent. Because the question I most want to answer today is, how do you actually move through I'm going to try that again. How do you actually move through the descent without getting lost or running back, going backwards, going back to what was chaotically safe? My big air quotes, safe, not real safe. Inanna's behavior during her descent gives us specific guidance. She did things that made the difference between transformation and destruction. First up, she told someone where she was going before she left. Before Inanna descended, she told Nishubar, her most trusted person, she said, "This is where I'm going. This is how long I should be gone. And if I don't come back, here's what I need you to do." She arranged her support before she needed it. This is the first thing you need to do in your descent. Tell a safe person, where you're going. Not everyone, not your family members or friends who are not safe, not your friends or family members who need you to be fine. A safe, real, trusted, genuine person. And tell them, I'm going into something hard, I'm doing the work, and if I go dark, come find me. Ask for help before you need it while you still can. And help comes in many forms, my friends. A therapist who actually does the work with you, not just a venting session, a real working hour where you learn a skill and practice it in real life. A support group, whether that be in person or virtual. Crisis resources. There is a crisis text line. You can text hello, home, hi, how are you, help to 741-741. Someone will talk to you, give you some coping skills, and help you calm down, help you see clearly. The National Crisis Hotline to talk to someone is 988. Women's groups, community groups, book clubs, coffee groups, you can meet safe women there. Self-care apps like Finch, Foxtel, Gratitude. These are really good apps for self-care, for journaling, and for practicing noticing the good. Finch, Foxtel, and Gratitude. And online communities of women doing the same work can also be a support system. Think outside the box when you think about creating a new support system, especially if the current one you have errs on the dysfunctional side, errs on the not helpful side. You do not have to descend alone. Inanna didn't, and you don't have to either. She was a superpower before she descended. She still needed help. So you are not excused from needing help. Up next, she went away, even knowing it would cost her everything. Inanna knew the descent would strip her. She knew it would cost her her crown, her protection, her identity, and she did it anyway. This is the move that most women don't make because it requires trusting the process before you can see the outcome. You know what your descent requires. You know what needs to happen. The conversation that needs to be had, the relationship that needs to end, the patterns that need to be broken, the therapy homework that needs to be done, sister, the decisions that need to be made. You know what is required. The question is whether you'll go anyway, despite the fear, despite the cost, despite not knowing what's on the other side. Because let me tell you, FEAR spells fear. False evidence appearing real. The shit's not real, sis. Don't let fear stop you. You can get through anything that you put your mind to, that's put in your mind, that's put in your heart, that's put in your soul. The fear feels like truth. It is not truth. It is your nervous system trying to protect you from the unknown by making the unknown feel more dangerous than the familiar pain you're already in. Trust that your nervous system will always choose familiar chaos before it will choose unfamiliar comfort. That's all that is. That is not a sign you're doing wrong. That is not a sign that not to continue. It's just a sign for you to stop, self-soothe, ground yourself, look around the room, name some colors, name some objects. Breathe deeply, relax, let the exhale be longer than the inhale. Offer something kind to your nervous system. I know this is scary, but we're going to try a new thing because future us will thank us. And then W, wiggle it out. This is all on a glow platform, GLOW. Ground yourself, lengthen your exhale, offer some kindness to your nervous system, and wiggle, shake, dance your body in some way to finish the stress response. Your future self will thank you for going despite the fear every single time. Inanna didn't fight the stripping at the gates. At every gate, something was taken from Inanna. And every time she asked, hey, what is this? The answer was always the same. The ways of the underworld are perfect. They may not be questioned. Excuse me, I'm taking a sip of tea. She didn't fight it, though. She surrendered to the process even when she didn't understand it. This is the hardest part because the stripping feels like loss, like things being taken that you need, like becoming less rather than becoming more. But you know what? The perfectionism has to go. The control, the armor, the performing, the people pleasing, the identity you built to survive. It all has to go. And your nervous system will resist every single one of these because they were built to protect you and they feel like you, and losing them feels like dying. But you have to let them go anyway. Not because it's easy, because wholeness is on the other side of the stripping and not before it. Inanna also surrendered to the process even when she didn't understand it. And this one deserves its own space because it's the most counterintuitive piece of the descent for neurodivergent women, especially. Our brains want to understand. We want to know the plan. We want to know the why. We want to know the outcome before we commit to the process. ADHD and autistic brains especially need to know where things are going. Uncertainty is genuinely neurologically uncomfortable in ways that neurotypical people just don't understand. And the descent does not give you that certainty. You cannot see what you're becoming from inside the process of becoming it. You cannot see the return from inside the death. You cannot see the shore from underwater. So, how do you surrender when you don't understand? I want you to trust the process more than the fear. The fear says stop. The deeper knowing says keep going. And I want you to learn to tell the difference. Fear is just an obstacle to squash. Deeper knowing is growing. It's forward movement. Look backward, not forward. You can't see where you're going, but you can see where you've been. Every precious descent you survived, every hard thing you came through, that is evidence that you can come through this too. Hold the small things. When everything is uncertain, hold the things that are certain. Today I will do one thing for myself. Today I will not run. Today I will show up for this 1 hour, small, concrete, possible steps for yourself. Today I will journal for 10 minutes, whatever comes up. Today I will sit in silence for 10 minutes and see what comes up without judging, without changing, without fixing. Today I will sit with myself and say or think kind things about myself and my body and my actions and who I am, without judgment, without correction. And lastly, let the dream call you. When I wanted to quit, the dream kept coming back. The vision of the life I wanted, the children I was doing this for, the person I was becoming. Let your dream be louder than your fear. All right, a little special caveat. I want to talk about how not to run, how not to get lost in the descent. What running looks like. Going back to the person you know is not good for you. Spending time with a friend you know who isn't genuine. Filling your calendar until you are too busy and too tired to feel your emotions or listen to your gut. Knowing what needs to be done and doing the exact opposite or doing nothing at all. Running also includes using therapy as a venting session instead of a working hour. Going to therapy to feel heard but not to change anything. That's running. Talking about your problems without doing the homework that addresses them, that's running. These are all modes of running dressed as coping, but it's running. I understand that it's uncomfortable. I understand that stripping hurts. I understand the uncertainty can feel neurologically painful. But this is temporary. This discomfort is part of the process and is necessary. And might I say it again, temporary. So how to stop running, right? That's part of this. Notice when you're about to run, before you pick up the phone to call them back, before you say yes to plans you will not that will numb you, before you open an Instagram instead of your journal, pause, name it. I am about to run from something. Then ask, what am I running from? What is the thing I don't want to feel right now? And guess what? I want you to feel it, even for a few minutes, even badly, even just enough to acknowledge it's there. You don't have to feel it all at once. You just have to stop pretending it isn't there. All right. How not to get lost, because there's a difference between descending and drowning, between moving through the dark and getting stuck in it. So what getting lost looks like, your life feels like it's on a loop, same situation, different day, going through the motions. The victim mentality that keeps you focused on what was done to you rather than what you're doing about it. You're stuck in the blame loop, stuck waiting for closure that may never come, stuck in therapy that isn't moving because you're not doing the work between sessions, doing everything except the thing that needs to be done. So it's a lot like running, but a little stuck. So you're not doing the hard thing because it's uncomfortable. You're moving with the fear. You don't want to wait for the fear to go away. You move with the fear. You take the next step with what you have, not wait until you see the whole process. So real self-care is what it means to not get lost in the descent. And I'm not talking nails, lashes, and hair. Those things are fine. I'm not knocking them, but they are not the self-care that moves you through your descent. Real self-care is journaling honestly, getting it all out of your body and onto the page, saying what you want to say, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, letting all the ugly out. You've got to remove negative self-talk, not replace it with toxic positivity. You are not a failure. You are in a hard season. Be realistic, be accurate. Decrease, eliminate, squash perfectionism. Good enough is enough. Something is better than nothing. You don't have to do the descent perfectly. Real self-care looks like play. Genuine, unproductive, just for you play. Color, swim, dance, watch something silly. This is not avoidance. This is replenishing the soul. Real self-care looks like solo time, time where you are only with yourself, not performing, not accommodating, just you. And last but definitely not least is learning to relax. Slowly, imperfectly, practicing relaxing. Slow down your response time, slow down your walking pace, slow down your daily tasks, slow down the way you treat yourself, less rushing, less demanding, less driving yourself past your limits. Slowness is how you stay present in the descent instead of numbing through it. And if you tell yourself you're going to do something, do it. Not because it's a demand on yourself, but because your future self will thank you for it. Because follow through builds self-trust, and self-trust is what carries you through your descent. And boundaries with other people are very important. The people who need you to stay the same, to stay small, to stay available and accommodating, those people cannot come with you into the descent. You don't have to announce it. You just have to stop organizing your descent around their comfort. All right. A little bit of tips outside of the last ones I said. So wrapping it up, one thing I want to say that is part of Inanna's story is what Nin Shubar teaches us about support. Because she is one of the most important figures in Inanna's story, and she is barely talked about. Nin Shubar was Inanna's most trusted servant and companion. She was the one Inanna told before she descended. She was the one who mourned, who went to the gods, who fought for Inanna's return when Inanna could not fight for herself. Nin Shubar could not go into the underworld with Inanna. That part of the journey was Inanna's to do alone. But Nin Shubar could stay above, could keep watch, could be ready, could act when action was needed. Every woman in her descent needs a Nin Shubar, someone who knows where you are, who will notice if you don't come back, who will come looking if you've been in the dark too long, who will get help if you can't get it yourself. This is your therapist. This is a safe person in your life. This is a support group. This is a life coach. This is a neurodivergent coach. This is a crisis line that will answer at 3 a.m. because you cannot descend alone. Not because you're not strong enough. Inanna was the queen of heaven and earth, and she still needed Nin Shubar's help. But because you need it because the underworld is not a place designed for solo travel. Healing is not a place designed for solo travel. That is why this podcast is here, to help you have a space to heal with someone who cares and knows how to help you heal. Find your Nin Shubar before you need her. Tell her where you're going. Let her keep watch. That can be a therapist, life coach, support group leader, and our members, because you are never alone. Use your resources. Build a support system from all the resources that are around you in your community. Oof, Inanna, right? 4,000 years old, and exactly what we're living right now. We can take lessons from this story from 4,000 years ago. And I wrote some notes here because I had stopped doing bonus episodes, and I just want to take a bit to take a moment to vent, a venting moment, if you will, because I saw a meme the other day that said, I'm not only here to tear down the patriarchy, I'm also here to tear down the parenting industry. Because we as parents must do better than our parents and their parents. No child is too needy, too dramatic, too anything other than extraordinary. All kids are needy at all ages because they are kids. Don't name call your kids, even if it's jokes you've always done or that's just who you are. It's not nice. It lands wrong, even if you think it's not landing wrong. Don't use bitey, passive-aggressive humor with your kids. If you have something to say, talk about it and don't use their shit against them. Don't hold things over them. If you do something for your kid, do it and don't make it part of their problem. Don't make it, I spent too much money on you, or I did that, you got to do this. That's conditional love. Fucking stop it. Don't pick apart their appearance, their life, their actions. Lead your conversations with compassion, patience, and curiosity. It's not about you or your feelings or how hard parenting is, because guess what? Parenting is fucking hard. Raising another human being or beings is hard work. But also, guess what? This is your job. Please stop complaining, especially to your children. Don't make other people, especially your children, feel bad for your choices of having children. Go to therapy or go to a support group, get a parenting coach, and vent and learn better skills at managing the responsibility of parenting, but do not pass it on to your kid. They are not your confidants. You are the adult and need to remain the adult in all situations forever and always. If you teach your kid 1,000,000 times to do something, plan to teach them 1,000,001 times. If you're burned out, then that means it's time to self-care, self-soothe, self-regulate, and learn some new skills. Take some family therapy, take some parenting classes, go to a parenting support group. Moms, stop being your daughter's first and only bully. Be fucking nice. Stop putting your shit on your daughters. Matter of fact, have a life outside of your kids. Do yourself and your family a favor and stop having your only identity being mother and partner. That's my vent. That's my beef. I am here to tear down the parenting industry as well. My thoughts of parenting, my ways of parenting seem to be pretty counterculture sometimes when I talk to other parents. But I mean well, because I see what happens to people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s who had dysfunctional, manipulative, passive-aggressive, bitey parents. And I don't want the next generation to go through that if we don't have to. Learn new skills. Just because your parents did it doesn't mean that's how you do it. Just because you went through it doesn't mean they have to go through it. Just because you had a hard life doesn't mean they have to pay for it for some way. Get over yourself, go to therapy, heal your wounds, and stop taking it out on your children. Okay, back to Inanna. I have something to share. I recently experienced a part of Inanna's journey, the part where she comes back from her descent to only realize that her husband didn't change, didn't grow, didn't reflect. This experience is so disheartening because over time, with someone I have in mind, I worked on myself. I worked on my career. I worked on myself and my career. The person I experienced the Inanna experience with just was going to stay in the same. No depth. I'm not perfect and I don't expect perfection from people anymore, but I expect self-healing, growth, change, where you self-reflection, taking constructive feedback. And I encountered someone that was once that knew me before my descent and post descent. I can see that they're not able to hold me in my new version. And guess what? Good riddance. Nice to know you. We can be acquaintances, but I don't have to go deeper. I know better now. I went through the darkness. I know who I am. So I say this and I share this to say, you may not know what your descent is, where it's going, or how you will be on the other side, but I promise you, it's so much better. It's rewarding. It's worth the darkness. You are in the descent. You're at the gates and things are being stripped from you. Your armor, your mask, your identity, the relationships that can't receive who you're becoming, the patterns that kept you safe but are keeping you small now. This is not punishment. This is initiation. You are not sent here because something is wrong with you. You are here because something in you, deep, ancient, and true, set its ear to the great below and heard something calling, and you turned toward it instead of away. That is the bravest thing a person can do. Tell someone where you're going. Arrange your support before you need it. Surrender the stripping at each gate. Slow down, do the real work, don't run, don't stop, just keep moving. Your shadow, your grief, your rage, all the parts of yourself you exiled to the underworld, she doesn't need to be defeated. She needs to be witnessed. When you sit with her, when you stop running from the dark parts of yourself and simply see them, really see them, something transforms. You will not emerge from this descent as the person who entered it. That person is being left behind at the gates. What emerges is more whole, more true, more fully herself than you have ever been allowed to be. Inanna descended and she returned as the queen of heaven and earth and the underworld. You are descending and you will return as something more complete than you knew was possible. If you need an Inshubar, find my link in the show notes. Let's work together. I'd be happy to help you through your descent. Wherever you are, let's get some coaching together. You can find the link in my show notes. In the next episode, we're going to talk about reclaiming pleasure, sexuality, intimacy, and safe touch, the specific healing work of returning to your body after sexual trauma. Until then, take the possible gentlest care of your awakened heart. You are not lost. You are descending, and the return is coming. Take care, and I'll see you soon.